Recording. And hello, Jean Bryant. I am very glad to see you.
Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning.
I have missed you for what, 10 months now?
Oh, a lifetime?
Yeah.
The nice thing is, Jean, we go way back. So this is a good, this is a good thing for me. I'm just awfully glad to see your face as an aside, by the way.
Likewise.
Thanks. So tell me about you and whatever part of your family you'd like to share about.
Well, my family is quite limited, but I'll start. I am the only child in my family, so I have no siblings, and my parents are deceased. I have no children, and the most significant part of my family is my partner for 37 years, soon will be 38 years, David Hamblin, whom you know and many people in the congregation know.
Yeah.
So I'll have to say that relationship has really enhanced my life, and I think it's been mutually enhancing. Also, there's one other very, very close friend that I consider family. His name is Alexei Smirnov. We call him Alex. He is Russian American. He was Russian when I first met him. Now he is an American citizen, has dual citizenship. Our relationship became about because a few years after I retired, and I've been retired 18 years, I heard that a Russian journalist was doing some of the work that I had been doing. So I wanted to meet him. And the fact that he is Russian, grew up in Russia, was even more of a catalyst for us to develop a friendship, because I grew up in East Tennessee, conditioned to fear the Soviet Union. And there was good reason for that, of course. But I was curious about the Soviet Union and the Russian people. And I made every effort from the time I was in high school to read as much as I could about Russia. And the first opportunity I had to go to the Soviet Union as an adult, I went, so I could see for myself and learn more about this, what had always been a strange and weird country from my perspective.
Right.
So Alex and I had a lot in common from that respect. As it turned out, he is one of the smartest and kindest persons I've ever known. I say smart because he's well educated, but he's fluent in 4 languages.
Wow.
His mother was a German translator for the Russian government. His father was an engineer for the space agency. So, and he too is an only child. So I consider him a very, very special person. And by the way, he has visited GNUUC. He attended Credo with me for one session, primarily because they were interested in learning more about Russia.
Oh, yeah. Does he live here in Nashville, Jean? Where is he?
Yes. And you mentioned you had a cat. I have a dog. I have his dog right now. I dog sit for him. He had to make a quick trip to Louisville. And so his French bulldog is sleeping about 10 feet from me. And I don't think she will arouse from her sleep.
Oh, that name, Alexei Smirnov, is the most Russian name any person could have, I think. That is just perfect.
And strangely enough, he has no accent. You would think he is a U.S. native.
Yeah. That study of languages, I suppose, just changes your ability. That's cool. Well, that's awesome, Gene. I hadn't known about that. So that is a great addition. All right, next. And I'm fascinated to hear this one because I know a little bit of the story, but I love to hear your perspective on things. The question I sent to you is, how did you discover GNUUC? But for you, it's not that you discovered it by moving to Nashville. You had a different role. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, as you know, I'm a founding member. I was a member of first UU initially. And so I got in right on the ground level. And I guess now 26 years or something like that. So, you know, I'm one of the original founders. I don't know, there are probably 4 or 5 others. Yeah.
It was really, I can only imagine as we're going through this pandemic, and as one of the church leaders, try to envision what that future looks like, that leap of faith that you all took I'm so grateful. And as you and I have discussed, it was a time of turmoil and a lot of difficult relationships and a lot of anxiety and stress. And just the fact that you all were able to envision something so wonderful, I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, when I think back of some of the other founding members who are now deceased and some have left the congregation for various reasons, I really miss them. It's a changed group of people, but you know, that's part of the life of any congregation. You're going to have that transition. But when I look back at some of those people, I really think how much I miss them.
Right. Well, and you'll always have that connection of going through that time together.
Right.
All right. What is an unexpected insight that you'd like us to know? I didn't know you'd taken a trip to the Soviet Union. I knew you loved to travel, but that was my first time hearing about that trip. So what have you thought of?
That was in the mid-1970s.
Okay.
I mentioned it was my first opportunity as an adult, but actually I was 30 years old, maybe 31 or 2 at the time. But it still was my first opportunity to go. And I had traveled a little bit before that. I had attended a conference, a seminar one summer at the University of Edinburgh before that. So I had some travel to Great Britain and spent some time in Scotland. I'd also been to Switzerland. And all the time I was working, I thought, when I retire, I'm going to travel. That's really the reason I'm going to retire. And then when I retired, actually before I retired, my father passed away. And my mother was living alone, and she became more dependent on me. And I would not leave the country because I just couldn't stand the thoughts of being out of the country while she was still living. And she passed away about 8 years ago. And David and I have traveled extensively since then. I don't know, I've never made a tally, but we must have gone to 30 or 40 countries since then. And we would be traveling this year had the pandemic not come along. We had prepaid for travel. And we got our money back.
Okay, good.
But with one exception.
Oh yeah.
Finally, we got it back. But it took us 5 months to get a refund from British Airlines. So,
yes.
And the only way we could get it was disputing the charge on her credit card. And that's, we would try to communicate with the airlines and they put us on hold. And since it was, their headquarters were in London, we were getting billed for charges while holding. And
yeah.
we tried to communicate with email and that didn't work. So disputing the credit card finally worked.
Good work. So would you say, is that well, I had several thoughts. Number one, your mom came and lived with you all, right?
She was with us for about 5 years.
Okay, got it.
On the end, she was here under hospice care in our home for 8 months. It was an extended period of time.
What a blessing. And I know you and I have talked about how much she loved David and what a blessing he was too.
And what a help he was to me because he retired and helped me take care of her.
Yeah. I'm so glad you've had this time to travel, Gene. Where were the trips this year supposed to be to?
We were going to end up in Iceland, but we were starting in Norway.
Okay.
And then I had a cruise from Norway to Iceland. And I don't know what the future holds, but right now, I would not think of continuing the travel. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are. I think I've told you we had a trip to Italy planned that I also had to fight with British Airways for. So I think there is a trend there, Gene. That must be their standard. But well, I pray that both of us will get to travel again sometime. I'm shocked you don't have a list, that you haven't tabulated the number of countries, because I think that would be fascinating.
Well, our travel agent gave us a map, a world map, and she suggested that we stick pins in, as she had done, places she had visited. We didn't follow up on that. And one reason was I really didn't have a wall to display the map.
I was just thinking that. Where would you hang it? That would be the hard part. Yeah. Well, you've still had the experiences. So,
and by the way, you mentioned Italy.
Yeah.
We have been to Italy 3 times since I retired. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
So that leads me to my next question. What is, would you say, the most amazing place you've visited?
I don't know. It changes from time to time because I think I've been to the most amazing, and then I go to another, and I think it's the most amazing. So it's sort of, there's sort of categories of amazement. I like, well, number one, I like natural scenery. I love mountains with lakes and waterfalls and snow-capped peaks and that type of thing. And nothing that I have seen can match Switzerland. And I've been to Switzerland, I guess, 3 times. And it's interesting, a year and a half ago, we were in New Zealand, and they have a mountain chain that they call the Alps. And not connected with the Swiss Alps, but they call them the New Zealand Alps. And they look very similar to the Swiss Alps, snow-capped and rocky. And, so they remind me quite a bit of the Swiss Alps. But and then another group of mountains that were just fascinating. We're in Patagonia, South America, Argentina, and Chile. And they're always snow-capped. And then the topography is interesting in that part of the world too.
Yeah.
So but I like the old cities in Europe, especially the old walled cities. I think a lot of Americans who travel don't appreciate South America as much as we did.
Yeah.
Especially, well, Argentina and Chile, we really, really enjoyed. Santiago, Chile is one of the most fascinating cities I've visited. It has its old and it has its new, but it's very modern, and I really enjoyed that. And then another category, I really, really, because of a language barrier, I enjoy visiting where English is the primary language, and that's one of the many reasons I enjoyed New Zealand so much.
Yeah.
And in fact, their English is more understandable to me than English was in Scotland.
The accent was so thick.
Yeah, and I think, and in Australia too. I think one of the reasons, I think their English and American English has blended because I was surprised how much American television they watch.
Oh.
And I was surprised how much U.S. news is reported in those two countries.
Oh, that's interesting.
Every evening.
Yeah.
And they seem to be so aware of our politics. And when I was there, so disturbed with our politics.
Yeah.
So I'll never get back to New Zealand and Australia, but I certainly enjoyed my visit to those two countries. And of course, being able to speak the language enhanced my ability to fully appreciate the countries.
Right. I hope you get a chance to get to Iceland. Have you been there before?
No. And there's one other significant travel that I want to share with you.
Yeah.
We've made 2 trips to Cuba.
Oh, right.
And Cuba is a third world country. There's no doubt about that. The people are very, very poor. And of course, they blame our economic sanctions for their financial plight.
Yeah.
But the two things, well, actually 3 things really stood out as far as Cuba. The Cuban people are so friendly, so nice, and crime is really insignificant in Cuba. You know, you don't feel safe traveling in many large cities, but Havana is almost crime-free. People walk the streets without worry, you know, late at night. And that was one of the surprising things.
Uh-huh.
And another thing that really, really left an impression with me was the level of literacy. There are practically no illiterate people in Cuba. Education is free, and many have college degrees.
That's great.
And because it is free, so many little boys want to become doctors, and they have more doctors than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
In fact, when we went to Chile, they were telling us that most of the doctors on their healthcare plan, the state healthcare plan, are Cuban doctors or Cuban trained doctors. So there were many things about the little island country that left an impression on me. And it bothers me that I wouldn't be able to go back now.
Yeah.
Because of restrictions. And they were so excited when we were there that the relationship between the US and Cuba seemed to be improving. And then when the door was slammed, their I'm sure, very upset about it. Although
Right.
I haven't been back and have no way of communicating with them.
Now, it was the Cuba trip where David got so sick the one time. Is that right? So you did
Right.
get to experience the healthcare system there a little too, right?
Yeah, and it was not good, but it for them it was available to them.
Yeah, I wondered when you talked about the doctors, how that played into.
Well, the facilities were terrible, but the care could not have been more. They could not have been more attentive.
Yeah, yeah. So that's an interesting balance they've got to try and strike. I hope the country can open back up as we try out a new administration and see where things are going. That's a great list, Jean. Now I have a whole bunch more places to go. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I can brief you on them maybe.
I know.
Get ready to go.
I do. When Italy we've done, so I wouldn't have had to ask you questions about that. But anywhere new, I know to check with you to see if you've been there, because I might as well tweak your brain as much as I can. So we've been home for 9 or 10 months now. Is there anything new or joyful or interesting that you have learned during the pandemic that you'd like to share?
Well, I guess I'm surprised with how well we've been able to cope with it. And we're very careful.
Yeah, understandably.
We don't have guests in our home. We don't visit. We don't grocery shop.
Yeah.
We have a shopping service that delivers groceries. About the only time I get out, I have been to the doctor, but my car battery keeps going dead, so I go out and try to drive my car to keep the battery recharged.
Yeah.
And then it does reduce cabin fever a little bit. But actually, in the summer, when I was engaged in gardening, I thoroughly enjoyed being home.
Yeah.
And I still do. So it's not been a bad experience, but it's been very worrisome from the standpoint that I know while we're having it okay, a lot of people are not.
Right.
And I've been greatly disturbed with how the schools and students' education has been disrupted. And I'm equally disturbed by all the stress that teachers have been put through.
Right.
So I do worry a lot about that. But as far as we're concerned, we're coping quite well.
Yeah.
And I do like these Zoomed Sunday services. I look forward to them.
Me too.
In fact, in some ways, it's very convenient to sit at home and participate and not have to get out.
Right. Yeah, I think we will have to figure out how, once we're all able to be back together again, how can we still hang on to the parts of that we've liked? So, gosh, Jean, I'm just realizing I'll need to interview you again in the spring or the summer so that we can have you sitting out in the garden and we can just do a garden tour, because we haven't touched on your garden at all.
I do that with the Sunday service in the summertime. I sit outside. Of course, with the cold weather, I had to come inside.
Right, right. Your garden is so, so beautiful. I can see where it would have brought a lot of peace in the spring when you were able to be out there.
Well, that was another thing that all the time I was working, most of the time I was working here in Nashville, I lived in a high-rise condominium. And I thought, when I retire, I'm going to find a place where I can have some dirt to scratch in. and as it turned out, I probably found almost the ideal location, because we're almost in inner city, but yet right. It seems like we're out in the country somewhere.
Oh yeah, you've got such a beautiful sort of quiet and secluded area there. Well, Jean, I look forward to the time when we can be together again. And I really I love getting to know more about you. This was perfect. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, I've enjoyed sharing it. So.
All right, I stopped our video. Boop.